Finally tonight, frustrations are rising for MBTA riders as shutdowns, power outages, and inaccurate schedules continue to bog down commutes. GBH News transportation reporter Bob Seay joins me now with the latest, and with some answers to some of your questions. Bob, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bob, what happened on Thursday?
Well, Thursday was a particularly significant day because so many different things converged, unfortunate things. First of all, that was the day the MBTA was supposed to announce that it successfully completed a closure from Alewife to Harvard, eliminating lots of speed restrictions. But they never got to do that because they were kind of upstaged by a massive power outage that took place right during the morning rush hour. It didn't affect power to the trains, but it affected power to all the signal systems, all the lighting in terminals, the escalators, the elevators, everything just came to a stop. And it turned out to be a 30-year-old power cable that had failed. I checked today, and there's still no explanation of exactly what happened. But back in November, the MBTA had released an inventory of its assets and said that 76% of its power system needed upgrades. So the problem with the power system, and by the way, a lot of these closures on the red line and green line, they deal not only with track repairs, but repairing the power systems and the signals as well. So unfortunately, everything came to a halt. The trains had to be operated manually for a while, and eventually it took over 2 hours before things were brought back to, quote, normal. So that was a particularly frustrating time for commuters, especially since it was freezing as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, normal's not that great. The T has been announcing that they're doing, ending shutdown zones on the Green Line. I live downtown. I take the Green Line all the time. I got to say, if they've ended the slowdowns, I don't want to see what slowdowns look like. What's going on here? Well,
they haven't ended the slowdowns yet, but they did tackle probably the most congested part of the Green Line. That's where all the branches come together at Kenmore and then go through these tunnels that really needed a lot of work to downtown. And what makes the Green Line different is it's got many more stops so that you don't get the time to really accelerate and go as fast as possible, 25 miles an hour at the most, whereas on the red and orange and blue lines, you can get up to 40 miles an hour. So once the speed restrictions are lifted on those lines, you tend to notice it more than on the Green Line. The Green Line has a lot more stopping and starting, and it does have this kind of congestion problem when you get to that tunnel area. So that's one of the reasons you're not seeing it. But the current Green Line shutdown, which is everything west of Copley, is pretty substantial. And people should see some results after that, which is, I think, going to be wrapped up March 8th.
So that seems like progress. But just sort of stepping back for a second, I used to work in Tokyo, where they explained to me once that if your train was more than 1 minute late, you would be given a certificate so you could explain to your boss why you were late for work by that 1 minute. So it is possible to run an urban train system on schedule. I've seen it done. We seem to be failing pretty spectacularly at that. Given all the mechanical issues, things like that, why can't they even get the schedules right?
Well, the schedules of the subway trains, that's a really good question. I think one of the things that has hampered them is a lack of personnel, particularly in something called the Operations Control Center. And the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, moved in and said you cannot have people working 16-hour shifts. You've got to change that. So not having enough dispatchers, they had to cut back on the service. So that did not help at all. And I think that's one of the main problems. They're getting that solved slowly, but there still are problems with minor delays and problems in the red and orange line that can cascade and cause other problems. So.
Yeah, I mean, so when I convinced my wife to move to Boston, I told her how amazing the T was. This is not making me look great, but I mean...
Well, amazing can be taken different ways.
So what are the prospects of real meaningful improvement in the next year, say, or...
I think it's going to take at least a year before you start to see some improvements in terms of the timing and the efficiency of the trains. But it's because the system was neglected for so many decades, really, that fixing it is that much harder and more expensive and takes a lot longer.
And I know there have been some discussions about congestion pricing. What would that look like, and is there any prospect of it actually happening?
Well, congestion pricing is the concept is that people will pay to drive on a particular street at a certain time. Academics will tell you that the only way to solve traffic congestion is making people pay for it. It's a very controversial proposal, but it's very different when you apply it to, like, the city of Boston, which was a proposal that was introduced this past week, which would electronically kind of ding you every time you passed a certain barrier on a certain street at a certain time. This is a long way from being reality. This is an introduction of a concept that I'm sure will be debated for a long time. But I think the debate will be good so that people learn more about some of the ways that other cities are trying to control congestion, like New York City, for example.
And so, Bob, we have questions from some of our viewers about what's going on. Sam from Cambridge had a question about fare boxes.
My name is Sam. I'm from Cambridge, and my question for Bob is, when are the new fare boxes going to come online? Well,
they were supposed to be rolled out in 2020. So where are we, 2024? They will be eventually, but nobody wants to really set a timeline for that. One of the ironic things that happened on Thursday was the MBTA was shooting a promotional video at North Station showing people how to use the new fare gates when they were informed that Phil Eng had, declared the T free that day. And I think they got the video done about 10 minutes before the fare gates were open completely. But this is going to take a lot of education of customers to learn how to use it. It's going to be kind of a situation where you tap your card or your phone, and that's the way it's going to happen. But it's still unclear to a lot of people how it's actually going to work. But it's going to take some time to roll out, I would think.
So it sounds like we're all going to be stuck in tunnels for sounds like at least another year while we wait for this to straighten out.
Well, all of these things take a great deal of time. There's no question about that. So patience is, something T-riders have become used to having, but they're going to need more of it.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.